today. Awesome. So we're going to have MAPS kick us off here in just a quick second, but real quick, while we're waiting, if you would type in what made you decide to join this webinar. We know you have lots of options on how to spend your Wednesday afternoon. So I do have some questions in any scenarios you want to chat through. So put in the chat box where you're located, what your position is, and then what you would like to get out of the webinar, and that will give me some direction. Okay, go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, sure. Thanks everybody for attending. Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Is it a wise time to hire an ISA with Anna Krueger? Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Group YouTube channel. You may access the YouTube channel from your Zoom confirmation email, and we will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone is on mute. We do value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions for your coach, please type them into the chat box located in the taskbar at the bottom of your screen. Your questions will be addressed by your coach throughout your webinar. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs in general, please email us at fasttrack, FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me, Anna. Take it away.
All right. Well, perfect, everyone. Well, today we're here to talk about, is it a wise time to hire an ISA? And I do feed off crowd interaction. So if you're able to, I'd love to see your faces. If you could turn your cameras on. If not, I understand. And then again, if you have something to say, feel free to speak up. We have a smaller crew today, so feel free to speak up, ask questions, things like that. Oh, good. There's more people. Yay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So my name is Anna, and I have been coaching inside sales agents since 2006, very long time. And I have been an inside sales agent over 27,000 hours doing inside sales. And then I've also led teams of ISAs, and now I coach for MAPS. So I'm very familiar of what not to do, as well as what can you do to help attract the right people. And so today we're going to really talk about how do you know if it's the right time to hire an ISA? And if you would put in the chat box, I see some of you typing in what questions you have and things like that, that will help me today. Thomas, I just noticed you were in La Jolla, aren't you? Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. Side note, we have a small crew. I got stranded in California about 2 years ago. And I went on Priceline and did one of those mystery deals where you don't know what hotel you'll be at, but you know what star rating it is and you get a deal. I was oceanfront in La Jolla. I couldn't sleep because the sea lions were so loud. It was so cool. So I love it. I love where you live. Okay. So first, let's just talk about what is inside sales agent. So essentially, it is the person you hire for your team who only does lead gen, lead conversion. So it's their full-time thing. If they work 8 hours a day, I would say 6 of those 8 should be active lead gen, lead conversion. And one way you can know it's time to hire, and just jot these down. These are some good metrics for you. Usually you need to have 2 to 3 agents per ISA. That's because if you have a talented ISA, which is what we want, talented ISA, they're going to create so much business that if you don't have 2 to 3 agents, they're going to run out of places to put people. So for example, if I'm working for Thomas and he's the only agent and I'm doing my job right, I should be producing anywhere from 5 to 10 appointments a week. Well, Thomas, that's a lot to go on if you're the only agent, right? Here's the other thing, and jot this down as well. If an appointment is more than 48 hours out, it only has a 20% show ratio, 20%. And if you are lead generating, who here is an agent, you lead generate? Anybody? Okay, even just for yourself, just know if it's more than 48 hours out, you have a 20% likelihood that they'll show up. Whereas if it's within 48 hours, it's a 70 to 80% likelihood. So again, that's why you want to have 2 to 3 agents per ISA. The other thing that you want to consider, and this could make you a little sick to your stomach, but it's good to know, good to think about. We know that if you call a new lead 6 times in 6 to 10 business days, you have a 90% chance of making contact. So everybody just think for a minute, how many new leads did you get in the last week? Just the last week. Get an estimate in your head. I know you may not know the exact, but just estimate it. And then ask yourself, how many of those new leads did you call 6 times in the first 6 to 10 days? Yeah. I see Kim nodding her head. Most people do. Most people say, yeah, I'm definitely not doing that. That's a sign that you need help, right? So it could be maybe we need to get more on our time block. Maybe I just need to be better with my schedule. But it also could mean that it's time to bring in an ISA so they can help you with that. So those are some key things. So 1, you have at least 2 to 3 agents. 3 is probably better. You're at capacity. You know that you're calling, you're not slacking off, and you're still not able to call new leads 6 times in 6 to 10 days. The other thing is, and we're going to talk about pay structure a little bit. You got to know your risk. Can't think of the word, but like how risk adverse are you, or how willing are you to take a risk? So ISAs are typically paid a base pay of $2,000 to $3,000 a month. You know, if you're in California, you're probably going to pay $3,000 a month base. You know, if you're in a cheaper area, maybe $2,000 a month base. I know our team is at $3,000 a month base, and we are in a pretty cheap part of the country, but we attract higher talent that way. So you're looking at a base pay plus commission. Commission means that they're licensed. So the reason I say the third thing to consider, and it will depend on your risk, you know, how comfortable you are with it, is do you have money set aside to pay this person? So you need 2 to 3 agents. You need to know, do I have enough leads? You know, do I have leads coming in? I'm not calling 6 times in 6 days. You are losing money. You are losing money if you're not calling new leads 6 times in 6 to 10 days. And then that third element is, do you have the money set aside to pay this person? Most ISAs, it takes about 6 months to see the benefit of their work. The first 3 months, they're building their pipeline. So they're getting them prepared. And remember, when you were new in the business, it probably also took about 3 months, right? So you're calling people, but to be consistently setting appointments, it usually takes about 3 months. So let's say I set an appointment today with Darla. Well, Darla meets with her agent. Then she has to pick a house. Then she has to go under contract. So we're really honestly looking at maybe up to 6 months to get a closing. However, once they start coming in, they tend to be pretty consistent. So you usually want to have set aside 3 to 6 months pay for this person, depending on how you're structuring them. Well, that amount will vary. Okay. So those are 3 things to look at. Another thing to consider is, do you have admin in place? My team, we failed at this. We hired more salespeople, and we did not have enough admin. Well, what do you think happened? Our systems got jacked up because we were creating so much business that we weren't able to get our systems down solidly. And then we were just kind of flying by the seat of our pants all the time from an operations standpoint. Where the reality is, had we had more operations, we maybe wouldn't have needed to hire so many salespeople, because the operations would have made us more efficient, right? But we were so heavy on sales that got out of whack. So, you know, we don't want to be hiring a bunch of salespeople if we don't have the operations to actually support them. Okay. So those are 4 metrics. 1, 2, 3 agents. 2, are you calling new leads 6 times in 6 to 10 days? It's a 90% contact ratio. Big deal. Third would be, do you have the money set aside to pay this person their base pay? And then 4th would be, do you have the operations? So a lot of people want to hire an ISA before they have their operations. And in reality, you want your operations first. So that's the quick down low on, is it a wise time to hire an ISA? There's a lot more we could talk about, yet I'm a huge fan of really responding to the questions you guys have. You guys are here. I want to really customize the class to what you guys are wondering. So we have 20 more minutes. We don't need to use the whole 20 minutes, but I'm curious what questions you guys have. I'm looking here at the chat box too. Okay, so you're trying to figure out, Brian, kind of, is it worth it? Does it make sense to hire an ISA? Is Brian still here? I don't see Brian. I wonder if he, oh yeah, there's Brian. And then, do I hire someone and train myself, or hire a company? Both really good questions. So I have strong opinions too. So the reason I have strong opinions is I've coached enough people and I've done it enough to see what works, what doesn't work. So I am incredibly firmly, like, very strong opinion they need to be local within the team. And here's why. There's a class I teach. It launches tomorrow. I'll tell you about that in a moment. And in every class, it's for the leader. I say, does anyone have an ISA company you recommend? Because people ask me all the time, and I don't have one. Do you have one? Every single class, people say, well, I had one, but I didn't like it. I don't work with them anymore. And the reason why is accountability. So if I let's say that I hire, Sally over here, but Sally is employed by someone else. So I have very little ability to hold them accountable to metrics because they're not my person, right? They're actually working for someone else. The other thing is, I know from being in inside sales, I'm actually selling the agent. So Kim, let's say that I work for you, and I know that this will sound kind of funny, right? But I'm actually selling you more than anything. So when I'm talking to leads, I'm going to say things like, oh man, you're going to love working with Kim. She is an excellent agent. In fact, she just won a multiple offer against 3 people yesterday, and she's one of the hardest working people I know. You have a dog, so does Kim. Kim has a dog. That's what you guys, you're going to have a lot to chat about. But if I'm not with you, I don't know any of these things, right? And so it's going to be a lot harder to sell you, which again, I know that sounds funny, but the ISA, our job is to get the meeting. And then your job as the agent is to get the signature. So our job is to pre-qualify them. It's to get them excited to meet with you. I'm going to introduce the idea of signing something. So that way you're not walking into that cold, but really I'm selling you as the agent. So I honestly have not found any company that people rave about. I've had people say I used it as a very temporary fix until I found my person, but it wasn't good for long term. That is what I've heard. Okay. The other thing is, I recommend that they're licensed. Depending on where you live, they may or may not have to be licensed. And I know some of you are international here. So you got to just know where you live. What can they or can't they do if they're licensed or not? But I'll just tell you, a best practice is licensure. It protects you. It allows them to talk about more things. And the biggest thing is they can get commission. And I'll just shoot. Can I just be really honest with you? Is that okay, everybody? I'm just pretty honest. I'll just tell you, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I'm saying this because I read about it in the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. Gary Keller tells us that lead generation, there you go, Kim. Gary Keller tells us that lead generation, lead conversion is the lifeblood of the business, right? Now, I'm not saying other roles aren't important. I cannot imagine not having a good operations person. I love operations. I cannot imagine functioning without them. But can we all just agree, if we don't have talented lead generation going on, we don't have anything to operate, right? Like the first thing is lead conversion. Well, why would I want to give that to someone that's somewhere else? I can't hear them. I can't train them really. They're in another company. And then why would I also not give them commission? Because the talented lead generators know that they're good at it. And if they're not being compensated appropriately, they will not stay on your team. So if you get them licensed, the beautiful thing is they don't get paid unless you get paid. So it's low risk, but it also gives them a high earning potential, right?
So how much pay commission on top of the base for the licensed person? Like what's the typical standard practice for that?
Great question. What we usually see is a base pay of $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And I will say you tend to attract higher talent the closer to 40,000 base that you get. I've had teams, they cannot find anyone, and then they bump the base pay up to around 40, and all of a sudden high talent comes in plus commission. But again, you have to know your finances to know if you can do that, right? And then typical commission, Kim, is 5 to 10% upon closing. I don't usually hear of more than 10%. And I don't usually hear of less than 5. So somewhere in there, I've heard of 7%, I've heard of 8%, but that's usually the range. What a lot of people do is they'll allot 12% for the ISA department And that makes it so that eventually you can have a leader. So maybe your ISAs make 10% and that leader gets a 2% override or something. Thinking like long-term, okay? Okay, I see a question in here. Do you know where we would look for a local licensed ISA? Sometimes there are people that lead generate. So as a MAPS coach, I've talked with people that say, I know it sounds crazy because some people don't like this, but I love lead gen. Like if I could just talk to people and set appointments all day and not have to meet them, not have to write a contract, that would make me super happy. So you could look at other agents, maybe single agents that really maybe they want more of a set schedule. They'd love the opportunity to set appointments for you. What a lot of people do is they'll find people that have experience with phone sales and then they'll get licensed. That's very common. So they'll find a good quality person and then they get licensed as part of the job.
Do you pay for their license? Is this something that they are paying themselves? Like, what are you saying?
It just depends. I know some teams that want them to pay for their own license to just kind of see how serious and interested are they. And then I know other teams that pay for it because they have vetted them enough that they're bought in and they feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it just kind of depends. I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I think it just depends. Just depends. By the way, I do want to say this real quick and then I'll get back to questions. There's so much to talk about here, right? And so there's a class that starts tomorrow. It's 5 weeks, how to hire, train, and retain ISAs. And I'll put the link for it in the chat box, but it starts tomorrow. I don't know when it will be offered again, and it is recorded. So if you're thinking of hiring an ISA anytime in the next 12 months or leading an ISA, only about a third of the class is on hiring. And then the rest of the class is how do you lead them? What metrics should you expect and by when? What should you never do if you want to keep an ISA? What should you do if you want to keep ISAs? Because the thing is, my passion is a lot of people think ISA doesn't work. That is starting to change. Enough teams have them now that they're starting to realize it totally works. But then people will hire and then they can't keep the ISA. And it's usually culture stuff. It's usually how we're paying them, how we treat them. And so the class is how to hire them, but also how to keep them. So that class starts tomorrow. It's 5 weeks. It's $199. So if you're thinking of hiring anyone in the next 12 months, I would recommend taking it. I don't know when it will be offered in 2022, but it is the last one of the year.
And
okay.
If you don't mind me saying,
yeah. Hey, Scott.
So I've taken both of your classes, but I took this class as a precursor to part of my 30, 60, 90 to hopefully become the director of lead generation. So my boss put me in and said, here, we're going to put you on a track to get there. But part of it, you got to finish Anna's class. So since then, I've been promoted to director of lead gen. I've successfully hired and built the team of, we now have 10 ISAs and we're crushing it. And we're managing 70,000 leads in our database and 1,700 new leads a month are coming into our boomtown. And because of all the help that you gave us through these classes, that's helped to propel our department. So I just wanted to say thanks, and we're signing up for our new people are signing up for your class that's coming up on the other class, the one for the newbies.
I'll get to see you again. Scott, we need to just get you on a webinar because I feel like sometimes the parent, you know how like if your parent says you look nice, it's like, yeah. But then someone else says you look nice and you're like, oh my gosh, thank you. I feel like I'm the mom, and you having taken the class, I think would be really valuable to have you share. So we need to connect and have you share some of what you've learned. That's awesome. But yeah, I really appreciate that, Scott. And what's cool, if I can just have a moment, everybody, in 2015, I went to family reunion, or 2014, and their ISAs were barely a thing. I only knew of 2 other ISAs in the whole country. And when we got to the conference, people were like, there's nothing here for us, ISAs. And I was like, yeah, it's called opportunity because no one has created it yet. And my vision, because I'd done inside sales in another industry, I knew it could work. but people in real estate, I don't think knew it could work. So I kind of set out on a mission of, okay, let's figure this out and then start training people so it can work in real estate. And I think it is so cool now that we have so many people with ISAs and ISA teams, and Scott, hearing your success, that's like a full circle moment to me, because, 10 years ago, you couldn't find an ISA in real estate. They didn't exist. So I think it's really cool. But yeah, my passion is that you not only hire, but you keep them. So that class is really centered around hiring and keeping ISAs. Okay, what other questions do you have? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Anna, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
I'm really excited to take that class tomorrow, because this is
Yay.
exactly what I need for where I am in my career. I am a commercial agent, and there's some technicalities in commercial. And I'm sure just like residential, it has its nuances also. And I am interviewing two actually college students tomorrow. They're both they're in fraternities, or so they're going to be pretty outgoing. But I was wondering, how can I leverage their skill set right now without just basically introducing our business, and not necessarily going into the details of what we can do, because they may, if these investors, who a lot of them have very high net worth, I don't want them to be, like offended when these guys will not be able to necessarily answer their questions. Or, you know what I'm saying? I would like them to speak with some credibility, but it's just basically an initial meeting as an call as an introduction.
Yeah. It's a really good question. I think two things ran through my mind. Is one, Kate, is they just need to get really good at saying, that's actually a great question. That's exactly why we're going to have you talk to Kate. So I used to say things like, think of me like the nurse, Kate is the doctor. So I'm here to gather what questions you have so that Kate can prepare for your meeting. But Kate is really the one that's going to answer those questions for you. So anytime they ask a question, great question, that's exactly why we're going to set a meeting. Let me write that question down. But Kate, I also think long-term, I very strongly believe, and this is why I believe in having them licensed. I strongly believe that the ISA should be able to do whatever the agent can do on the front end to set the appointment. So if there's like a certain caliber or certain conversations or certain questions you want them to be able to answer, whatever needs to happen for them to be able to answer that, I would look for that kind of person, and then train them. If they need to be licensed, get them licensed so they can just do that for you. So I have a lot of opinions. But I looked at it like, if Haro was my team leader, so if Haro could do it before the meeting, then I should be able to do it. So if Haro can, like, he taught me how to run a comp to know if this person was unreasonable or not. I never talked about comps with people, but when I set appointments, I ran comps to see, is this person out of their mind or are they reasonable? I talked to them about pre-qualification. I navigated objections. Anything that Haro could do before the appointment, I could do. And I do believe that that's the best model.
Is there a soft way of asking an introductory question, just to introduce the company, so that we can get their email, so that we can basically collect their email?
Yeah. I mean, I think you got to know where the lead comes from, but I think you can say, we'd love to stay in touch with you, keep you aware of what's going on in the market. What is your email? Not, can I have your email? Just, what's your email? And Kate, I think a lot of what you're asking too, there's a class we teach called Mastering Inside Sales that starts November 3rd. That one is for the people on the phone, and that one does go way into scripts, language patterns. It's 18 weeks. And
that's the one
really
I signed up for.
Okay, awesome. Okay. That will help them with how to talk to people. That's what that class is for. The one tomorrow is more for the leader, kind of like high level, hiring, payment, virtual, local, all that stuff.
Okay, so they should be on that call. The ISA person should be on that call in November.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if they talk to, we even have agents in there. If people are talking to people with the goal of turning them into clients, masteringinsidesales.com, that's the class that starts November 3rd. So we have two classes. One is for the leader. It's 5 weeks, how to hire, train, keep ISAs, 5 weeks, one and done. good to go. Then we have a separate course. It's 6 months, and it's for the actual people making the calls, agents or ISAs. It's on language patterns. It's on scripts, the economic model. We talk about conversion. We give them 4 trackers. So that one is really for the person you've hired.
Okay.
Or
Thank
you, if you still make calls. Yeah. Good question. Okay. What other questions do you guys have? We probably have time for 1 or 2 more. Let's see. Do I hire someone and train myself, or do I hire an ISA company, Kim? Kim, I personally strongly believe, and this goes back to what we talked about before, not hiring through a company. Now you can have people help train them, but even when I'm training, because I do train a lot of ISAs at this point through the program I just mentioned, I still believe it's best when I train, but the local leader weekly says, hey, what did you learn on the webinar? Let's see your notes. Let's practice. So I look at it like, let me do the heavy lifting for you through the program. And then your job would simply be, were you on the webinar? What did you learn? Let's practice. And so you're more kind of like the enforcer of the info, making sure they showed up to the class, but I can train them for you. But I wouldn't recommend having someone else hire them for you. Even people will ask me, will you hire my ISA? And I say, no. I don't know your culture. I don't know, like, I want to train you how to hire your ISA, or you're always going to be dependent on someone else. So let's help you all learn how to hire the ISA, so you're not having to pay someone else every time you want to hire someone, right? That's my passion. I want to enable you guys to do it. Like Scott, you have 10 ISAs now. You did that. It's incredible. I don't want you to have to depend on someone else. Cool. Any other last questions? We have maybe 1 minute. You guys.
Hi, it's Marisol.
Hi, good to see you.
Hi. Sorry, I was a little late. You might have gone over this, but can you tell me a little, because I'm really considering hiring an ISA, but I don't know everything about them. So what exactly, other than they make the calls for you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can you explain a little bit kind of what they do and I guess the process and how they connect with you, maybe?
Yes, I can do that, not fully in a minute, but I'll do my best. And
That's
I will
okay.
say
Just an overview so I know.
Yeah, and that's part of what the class is for. The 5-week class that starts tomorrow goes deep into all that, like super deep into it. How do you know you're getting ROI on the position? What kind of metrics should you be expecting? What kind of conversion rates should you have? All that stuff. So I'll put the link back into the chat box here. But basically an ISA is a full-time lead generator, lead converter. So if they work 8 hours a day, 6 of them should be on the phone. And I call them like the incubator. So I'm the person, if I'm your ISA, I'm the person who talks to leads. You know, if they're 6 months out, I'm the one that talks to them. And I keep the lead until they actually meet with you. So I set the appointment, and it's my job to make sure they show up. Now, once they show up, the agent takes it from there. But they're really the person that's there to make sure that appointments are being set and actually showing up. Let me pre-qualify them for you. I call it kind of like the bouncer. I'm the bouncer for the team. So I would feel really protective of Haro's schedule or any of the agents on our team. So I didn't just put anyone in the calendar, right? Like I needed to pre-qualify them. Are they serious? Are they reasonable? Do they have pre-qualification? Who are the decision makers? You know, what do they think their house is worth? Do they have a lien on the house, right? Like, are they in forbearance? You know, like just what's going on? And then setting up those appointments for you. Okay. And then this recording will be uploaded to within 24 hours to the MAPS channel. So if you were late, you can catch the whole thing on the YouTube channel. But tomorrow, it is the last class. I've heard we're going to offer it in 2022, but I don't have any dates. So I don't know when it would be. And this is a live class. So it's 5 weeks, $199 to hire a lead generator, right? That's a good investment. So I would say if you're going to hire anyone or lead, maybe you already have an ISA and you just want to lead them better, I would take the class now because it won't be offered again this year. And I don't know when it will be next year. And you can just take notes knowing, let me save these notes for, you know, June of next year and you'll be ready to go. So every class is recorded. So you know, if you're out showing a house, don't worry about it. You can watch the recording. And it starts tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern time. So basically when this webinar started today is when it'll start tomorrow. And it's 5 weeks. So I put the link one more time in the chat box. And then if you have any other questions, I'll put my email in there. Most of them are probably answered in the class. The class came from what are all the questions that come up all the time, and then we created a class.
U equals.
Oh, that's okay. I was like, is someone saying something? Okay, cool. Well, we're right at time, and I want to respect your time today. Thank you for being here, Scott. Scott, I just have to say, I love that you come to so many of these. Like, you probably could teach this at this point. I see you so often, and I just love your commitment to just learning, growing. I think that's a great sign as a leader. So thanks for being here.
You bet. Thanks.
All right, guys. Well, again, class starts tomorrow, 5 weeks, $199, everything recorded, how to hire, train, and retain ISAs. So we go deep into the culture of the team. And then November 3rd, we didn't really talk about this today, but November 3rd is the class for the actual person doing the lead gen. And you can have 2 people per contract. So if you want to take it and you want your ISA to take it and do it together, you can do that. Usually it's 1 person per contract, but I asked MAPS and they said, we'll do 2. So 2 people per contract for Mastering Inside Sales, as long as you're within the same team. And that is November 3rd, okay? For both of these, if you just go to isamapscoaching.com, you'll see both classes sitting there on the website, okay? All right, guys, well, listen, it has been a pleasure to hang out with you. I see new faces as well as familiar faces. Great meeting you, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow in class. Bye, guys.